What's the future of pollution? You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Hey everybody, this week Matt and I covered pollution. Now, if you are a fan of our show, thank you for watching. And as you know, we never get everything we want into 1 week. So what we'd like to do is talk a little bit about the future of pollution, some things that we have touched on in some earlier episodes that didn't make it into this series. Pollution, of course, regardless of someone's political affiliations or their ideologies, it's obvious that pollution is a problem for the human species. It's just a matter of the degree that we argue about. And in our earlier episodes, which you should check out if you haven't seen them yet, we do talk about this ongoing debate. So with the future of pollution in mind, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about pollution in 5 separate ways. We're talking about pollution related to water, pollution related to air, earth or soil, food sources, and fuel sources as well. So let's talk briefly about water. Riddle me this. How many rivers have disappeared in China? If you guessed 28,000, then boom, you are correct and you're very good at guessing. Originally, it was thought that China had about 50,000 rivers. Well, according to an article in The Atlantic, the Chinese first national water census found that there were 28,000 missing. The Chinese government attributes these disappearing rivers to statistical discrepancies, water-soil loss, and climate change. This is not all that unusual, or at least it's not unprecedented. We should also consider the Aral Sea, which once upon a time was huge and now has dwindled due to the intervention of human beings. But it's not just the absence of water that human beings need to worry about. There's also desertification, which does sound like an awesome thing that happens at the end of a meal. However, this is the encroaching sand of the desert, which is consuming entire towns. This also could be just a natural part of the world's evolution. And then another thing, Matt and I really enjoy when well, maybe enjoy is the wrong word, but we do feel a bit vindicated if something that was once treated as a crackpot theory turns out to be true. As you all know by now, the theory that neonicotinoids, a type of pesticide, were killing bees used to be rejected as just sort of claptrap, just sort of dismissed. What are these guys talking about? Well, it turns out that that was probably true, and later this type of pollution may drastically affect everything that bees drastically affect in their region. And just one more example here that I'd like to explore in more detail later. The North Pole is melting. The North Pole will become a navigable sea route probably within your lifetime. What does this mean? Well, in a commercial sense, it means that there's potential for a vastly truncated route between the Pacific, or between the East and the West, the Pacific and the Atlantic. What it means internationally, however, is a new scramble for territory. All of the countries lining the North Pole, if you picture the North Pole right here, all of the countries lining it are vying for hegemony, are vying for supremacy over these trade routes, as well as the lucrative economic benefits that could occur. And within our lifetime, we may well see that become one of the new hot points, one of the new scrambling points for the planet. I mean, it makes sense when you think about how much of the world's trade is transported via cargo ship and how much time could be saved by going over the North Pole. So these are just some interesting things to look out for the future of pollution. Thank you to everybody who's been writing feedback. We really appreciate it, and we're going to explore further in depth some of the things you suggested, some stuff about corporate shenanigans, some other pollution conspiracy theories that, like the bees and the neonicotinoids, may well turn out to be true. And speaking of feedback, it's time for listener mail, right, Matt?
That's correct.
Okay. We post our email address on Twitter recently. Now, we always mention our email address at the end of the video, but you know, it's at the very end of the video, so it's kind of easy to miss. We got a lot of responses, and we wanted to read a few and see what you think, if you think these could be cool topics for the future. Dan L. wrote to us and said, hey, I would like to ask if you guys would consider covering Operation Snow White or Scientology. And this was a longtime favorite of ours, we have actually never covered Scientology. If you guys want us to cover Scientology, then we will drill down and we'll look at the specifics. So let us know if you have something specific you'd like to cover, like Snow White, or if there's something just bigger, just Scientology 101. Now, as you know, Scientology as an organization can be a little bit touchy, so let's see what happens, right? And then Ralph C., who wrote an excellent email to us inquiring about the hollow earth theory. Now, Ralph, you clearly already know a lot about this. You mentioned New Schwabia, which was real. You mentioned Richard Byrd, the US military official who went down there. And I've got some good news for you. Matt and I have covered the hollow earth. I've got some kind of bad news. It was one of our earlier episodes, so it's not, what's the diplomatic way to say this, Matt? It's not the best. It's not perfect. And maybe we can return to that in the future and drill down into some Antarctic adventures. Since we're already talking about the North Pole, why not the South, right? And let's make our last piece of listener feedback a group feedback thing. Everybody who wrote to us on YouTube, who wrote to us on Facebook, dropped a line on Twitter, or sent us an email about Michael Hastings' death. We are covering that. We're covering that next week, so stay tuned. We're gonna talk about the death. We're gonna talk about the feasibility of controlling a car remotely. And as always, you know Matt and I like to throw in a few surprises, so keep your eyes peeled. This might be an episode you wanna replay a couple frames at a time. And one last thing, it's a really big day for us. We owe you a huge thank you. Our YouTube channel just got to 50,000 plus subscribers. That's amazing. We never thought this would happen. It is entirely due to your support. So thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next week.